321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Bridges. Today we'll bring a very important topic to you. Our topic is the youth and the way law enforcement and youth come in contact with each other. I am your host, Officer Yusuf, and along with me is Commander Yasser Bashir from the HPD Midwest Division. Commander, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing good, Commander. So we have an interesting topic today because we come in contact with the youth a lot more than police officers would like to come in contact with. It's just, I would say a good 40% of our task is coming in contact, either being called by the youth themselves or being called by the parents or having the unfortunate duty of arresting them when some sort of crime is committed. So I know that on a command level, we've got a lot of stuff going on when it comes to youth. So
we have a lot of stuff, but one of the reasons that we decided to choose this topic is because over the years, as parents, family members, they all come to police officers.
Yeah.
Hey, you need to do something about our youth. Come up with something, some kind of program.
Absolutely.
Because they want that interaction. Use even fear if you have to. Make sure they don't go on the wrong path.
Yeah.
So today's topic, I'm glad we're doing it. But I don't think it's going to be one episode because there are many different things I want to talk about. I don't think we're going to have that time for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when it comes to the youth, since we come with, there's so much to cover, so much to talk about, the problems that the youth themselves face, especially during the schooling time when they're young, they're absorbing all this knowledge and they're coming across all these problems and especially in today's world with the cyber, with how social media is, how the cyber world is, there's a new challenge that the youth themselves face, and it's
well. What's interesting is many of the challenges the youth face. Like for example, something I never heard of. I mean, not heard of, but like many of the people may not be aware of internet bullying. How do you get internet bullying and you're not even face to face?
Exactly.
So these kind of terms that we're going to talk about, which the parents may not be aware of, what's happening out there. So we just want to take this opportunity to educate the viewers, and also perhaps we have some youth watching this program that they can learn from.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start with the root causes.
Yeah.
Let's just begin with the most basic thing, that is what causes the youth to go off the well-worn path, the path that all of us choose, and what takes them from that specific section to delinquency or crime for that matter. So let's start with that.
I'm glad you mentioned that. There has been a lot of research done by sociologists, by criminologists to understand why does two people could be, grow up in the same household where one choose a life of crime while the other became a very successful member of the society.
Yeah.
So this all begins at a very young age. So, for example, the criminologists have used this theory. It's called life course theory. Interesting. Okay. It sounds very interesting theory. Yeah. So what this theory basically states is that the criminal behavior begins at an early age.
Okay.
It begins at a very early age. So one doesn't become like a 40 and say, you know what, I'm going to become a robbery suspect. Or I'm going to start committing BMVs, etc.
Absolutely.
So once again, it starts at a very early age as a result of exposure to multiple, not one, but multiple interwoven socio-economic and educational problems. Yeah. So this is at an early age. This is what the theory states. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define two risks. I'm going to define two definitions, and then we'll expand on that. And then by those definitions, we will be able to explain why crime occurs within the youth community. The first is called a risk factor. Okay, it's a condition or characteristic of variables that increase the likelihood that a child will become delinquent.
Yeah, it's like little markers, little
indicators,
flags that you see that say, hey, this is the time to fix this before it becomes a full-blown problem.
So on one hand, you have these variables that will indicate the likelihood a child will become delinquent. On the other hand, you have what's called protective factors.
Okay.
So these are the variables or conditions that a child may not become prone to delinquent behavior.
Okay.
So there are, once again, this is research. So everybody does research. They all may find different conclusions. But there are hundreds or perhaps thousands of these factors. But if you were to take all these factors and group them into 5 major groups, and then you can take those groups and subdivide and look at. Then you can look into more in depth and understand why certain children are prone to, or they end up being at high risk.
Okay,
Delinquent
so
behavior.
let's talk about the groups themselves. The,
Yeah.
the very first thing would be a child's own individual personality.
Absolutely. For example, if you have children, they all have different personalities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like even if your brother and sister is completely different personality and they could be born the same month. You love them the same, but
Yeah. One's very outgoing, the other one just wants to be by
Yes.
themselves all the whole time, and then that I guess plays a very important. But that's one of the biggest roles is that,
Yeah.
and that's where bullying often comes is that they get bullied for. Most kids face bullying because of their personality.
because
How they are.
may lack self-esteem, they lack the motivation, or they're just not motivated by doing anything, and maybe they don't have those motivators in their life.
Yeah.
Everybody has different
Conditions
stimulus
that-
conditions that
exactly.
motivate us.
Yeah.
Some people are motivated by committing crime, while others, like us, we get motivated catching the bad guy.
Exactly, and for kids it's a bigger thing because there are so many stimulants of the right type and the wrong type. Again, at a very young age when you're absorbing so much information.
The second one, last week, remember we talked about family violence?
Yes.
Well, also family plays a big factor in delinquent behavior.
Okay.
Such as, did you come from a broken family?
Absentee parent could be a father or a mother that's missing, not
Yes.
having a proper guiding personality in the life. If both the parents are missing, then the kid is just absolutely going to go into the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's where outside influence comes into mind as well. You can have outside factors like gangs, for example.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they can provide you the brotherhood, but we'll discuss it more after
Yeah.
we get with the factors as to what the factors bring in. And then we've also got, I guess, the third factor would be schools.
School, yes.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live at, some of the schools are in high crime school area, and school has also impact on if you're going to be delinquent, if you're going to be involved, if the child's going to be involved in delinquent behavior or not. For example, is what kind of standards the schools tolerate. I know some schools they have police presence. Some schools the students have to go to metal detectors because they anticipate some kind of violence may occur. The fourth one is your peer group. For example, if you hang out with the wrong friends.
Yeah, you hang out with the wrong people, you're going to get into trouble. You're going to find
all
the
the time,
wrong people. So yeah, that's a very straightforward one. And then we've got the community itself.
The last one is community. That's the major community. Community doesn't mean like depending on what you go out and the people you meet with, but actually it's just you have a family structure, what community you belong in, depend on the religion, your culture, or your country.
Yeah.
Or you just you go to work or whatever, you just come home and there's no interaction with other people.
Absolutely. And we as police officers, we've seen our patrol officers, our specialized units, they come in contact with kids generally at school quite a lot. In fact, schools have specific sections where they know that if a kid has gotten into trouble too much, they will send them to those sections so that they can keep them all grouped together and try to see if they can rehabilitate them. Now,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So now, coming at that, I was going to come back to the gang issue. That's something that we've had that's been a very important factor.
But before you talk about the gangs, but let me tell you one thing: the biggest factor in determining if a child is going to become delinquent or not is, which we talked about earlier before the show, was antisocial behavior.
Absolutely, and we were discussing how people. There's a very big misconception because very often antisocial behavior is confused for I should say it's the other way around, but introverts are confused for antisocial. An introvert is just a person who doesn't have the capability at the time of being able to be social with somebody, be able to put themselves out there, talk to people, and be able to communicate with people. Antisocial is that a person willingly says, hey, I don't want to do anything with anybody. I'm just my own person. Leave me alone. Let me do my own thing. And like we were discussing how that plays a very big role in bullying that happened at school is because it's revolved around that.
According to research, that is the biggest factor. Now, what are some things that you do these days that make them antisocial?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is, of course, social media is a big one.
Yeah, everybody's on their phone. We see it all the time, even adults. I mean, but it's not just the kid. Even adults do it. But you see a lot of adults are just, or the kids are on their phone the whole time. Video games. I mean, Everybody plays video games. I've done it, but not to the point of where it's being done for hours and hours and hours upon, and you're just locked away from the world. Because even now, as we were talking video games, you've got so many organizations that are going out there and telling you. Even in fact, American health organizations are starting to put out circulars saying, hey, have your kid at least go out there and play for 60 minutes. Like the NFL does it. They have a Play 60 program. So they want your kid to go out there.
Right.
But we have this thing where we let the kid be antisocial, like morph into that character.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because the way I see it is, when you're on the social media, you're always playing video games. What you're lacking is human interactions.
Yes.
Whenever you deal with people, you also will have problems. And then what happens is, and you lack the problem-solving ability. For example, somebody cut you off on the freeway, you get into a road rage incident. You get angry very quickly because you didn't learn the skill set to be able to communicate.
The interpersonal skills that we pick up as we were younger, we were able to talk to people.
And this continues on, continues on with your relationship. Let's say you want to, one day you want to get married or find a significant other, and that's going to come up.
Okay. So so that's something that parents have to look at. They have to discuss that with their kids, spend some time with their kids,
Absolutely.
understand that, hey, these kids, it's very important to be a part of their life.
Now, like you were about to allude to the gang. Of course, this is leading up to the gangs.
Yeah.
Because the gang members, they know this is the kind of people they look for to recruit.
Yeah.
Who lack so self-esteem, they come from a broken home, so that way they can, they can fill in the void.
The void of brotherhood, the void of belonging, because that's one of the things that, working with gangs for such a long time, that's basically what the presentation is, that you are being jumped in or clicked into a gang because they tell you, hey, we'll watch out for you the whole time. You don't need family or anything like that. It's what we're here for. It's a brotherhood. You produce for us, we produce for you. It's a give and take relationship, but essentially it's more like a give from the kid's perspective or the juvenile's perspective.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this research that was done in 2005 by Rand Corporation.
Okay.
It's very interesting because they do years of research. What they want to do, what they're trying to find out is they're always trying to find out the root causes. Why do certain people become delinquent? Okay. So this research was kind of interesting. For example, in 2005, the research was about what is the biggest predictor in students becoming perpetrators in violence in high school.
Okay.
So meaning, hey, what were some of the signs you can look for that person may become prone to violence in high school? So they did this research for 7th graders.
Okay.
So I want you to take a wild guess. What were the 3 different characteristics they came up with, 3 findings?
So wow.
7th graders. This is middle school students.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't be able to take a wild guess because it's been a while since I was in 7th grade.
Number 1 indicator was, the 7th grader, that they will become prone to violence 5 years later. So that's 5 years time.
So you're going to 12th grade by the time you're
by
getting
12th grade. So number 1 was having poor grades.
Okay. So,
Number 1.
Okay.
And then, of course, you know what leads to poor grades?
Yeah.
Not studying, not engaging in the activities, or perhaps people get low grades because they're having problems at the house. There are many different variables why students get low grades.
Yeah.
Second is having experienced frequent moves between elementary schools.
Being shifted from one school to another because of, you can understand maybe it's because of they're moving their houses, they're moving cities, or a job situation.
Now, the friends they had, they have to start all over again. And they have to start all over again. And they may come to a point where they don't want to they don't want to make friends. And that can be harmful for that person.
Yeah, for the kids' growth, because they have to reestablish all those connections, and it's hard to, especially in today's world, it's a little hard to do that.
And the third predictor that this research came up with was that the person or the student exhibited early deviant behavior.
Okay.
You know what deviant means?
Oh, yeah, so let's go into
very
deviant behavior. Yeah,
very unusual behavior.
Okay.
That could be like hurting animals, playing with fire.
And that's a big marker. Hurting animals. We've gone to so many classes where we've been told that, hey, if you see something like that, hurting animals is a big marker for not just delinquent behavior, but human abuse as well. That's a big marker for human abuse.
So what I want to do is, what I do want to do is I want to connect everything. Now this is where the gangs come in. This is where the students, or our youth get exploited by these criminals because they're having all these issues.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna briefly discuss. Also, what I'll talk about is the fear.
Okay.
Because sometimes we let our fears get the best of us, and
Yeah.
we think we're protecting our child, but actually we may be hurting them.
Yeah,
in the future.
fear can be anything. Fear can be considered. Some people consider fear to be a big motivator.
Yeah.
Some people consider fear to be a big obstruction in their growth. Fear can be used in so many different ways. But let's hold our thought right
Yeah.
here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back right after this break.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green right outside Henry County. 911 dispatch.
321 status.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green right outside Henry County. 911 dispatch.
321 status.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So before we went to the break, we were talking about fear being an important part of our youth's lives these days, and how it impacts the lives of our youth and the things that we could do. So, Captain, let's take it away.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how fear can impact our kids in today's world, and what kind of fear. We're not talking about fear of physical harm, but also as a general.
The mission of the Youth and Police Department is to reduce crime, but that we work cooperatively with the community to reduce crime, and we also the fear of crime. Sometimes our fear do not match with the actual data that we have. Okay, so I always enjoy talking about fear because it's something like a feeling you have, and I'm fascinated. Where did this come from? So recently I read a book. It was very interesting. It talked about fear, about different communities, fear. Gender, fear about different age differences.
Okay.
People, what kind of fears do people who come from different part of the world? What kind of fears do they have? So I thought it was very interesting. So I was going to discuss briefly about fear because it gets to our bones, and it really affects the way we live our day-to-day life.
Absolutely, because and fear can, like I said, fear can be a great motivator. As you were talking before the break, is like, hey, fear can be a great motivator, or it can be a great obstruction in your growth overall.
The number one thing is that fear actually destroys the sense of community. If you feel like that you may become a victim of a crime, you may not go out your house. You may start avoiding certain places when data may support that it's a safe area.
Yeah.
So because you saw something in the news, and then now it impacted how you communicate, or how you not communicate, how you deal with your sense of being in the community. The second is that because of fear, you may start overprotecting yourself.
Yeah.
Safeguarding your house, your home, your property.
Or get too many dogs, put too many
many
cameras on the
dogs,
house,
alarm
or something
clocks.
like that. Yeah.
I'll tell you one fear that I had was, which is legit fear, and that is, look at all the different type of insurances. I had health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. Yeah,
They have an insurance for
appliance
insurance. There's insurance for anything. You can pretty much find it for anything. At this point.
because why? Because they want to create a fear. So I'm like, why am I wasting so much money? Because we have the fear, hey, in case something breaks down, they'll fix it for
And
me.
that's what you're paying for in case something happens.
And I said no, because why am I living in fear? I said when it happens, I'll deal with it. Because actually, if it's financially, it also will have impact. Fear also, a fear of crime also harden out attitudes toward criminals. When what happens is we see the criminals as very bad human beings. So when our youth they do commit one crime, we over exaggerate it.
Yeah.
We over exaggerate it, and we just want to just treat them like like different, completely different, rather than looking at that you do make mistakes and what is the best way of handling it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Some of the crimes
Prejudging somebody for the
Yes.
crime, or passing a judgment without
Yeah.
knowing the facts, or
because
what's
they're not
going
fully developed. You know, some kids they really need to be in jail, but some they made mistakes.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure that we handle it properly.
Okay.
Also, fear has psychological effects on human beings. And the last one was that fear also changes our lifestyle. As parents, the number one fear that most parents they have is when the child goes to school, is my child going to get bullied in school?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For example, it depends on your religion, your race, whatever it may
anything.
be.
I mean, anything at this point.
And I was surprised that in 2007, a research was done that 32% of students were bullied in schools.
Wow, that's a
32%.
very high number for kids to be out there.
But 79% observed bullying in the school.
Okay.
That's amazing. That means
That's
bullying
more
happens.
that's more than three-fourths,
Yeah.
like just touching the part of three-fourths,
Right,
like, hey,
right.
they've seen it. Well, now that you bring up the study, so let's talk about some of the stats as to show or
Right.
discuss with the viewers what kind of impact is happening in the youth's life and what we need to watch out
So
for.
what we're gonna do is we are gonna talk about some stats, but then we're gonna give different programs that we
Okay.
can get the youth involved in, so that way they
At
can.
least for us, or at least for Houston,
Youth
the
police,
programs.
yes.
I'm sure that since there's a lot of cities that are watching this. We're also in Canada. I'm sure that they will have their separate programs, but we can give them something for what that we have in Houston here.
So now here's what the research states: that the small number of youth engages in criminal behavior. It's a very small percentage of youth that engage in criminal behavior. But our mindset may be different. Like, oh my God, kids are always committing crime. But a larger number, many more, actually are victims of crimes.
Okay.
So what are these crimes? Family violence, child abuse, human trafficking, bullying. So they're being victimized other ways than they actually they're being engaged in criminal behavior. The other one was gangs have appeal to children
Absolutely.
who
Yeah,
live in
we
communities where
discussed it.
gangs thrive. Gangs often fulfill their survival functions. We talked about that, touched upon that.
Yeah, we touched a little bit off it, but we know that and especially in Houston, we come across a lot of gang activity related to schools. We actually have programs that will go on and later about how we try to counter that. But yeah, let's continue going with them.
According to a national survey of children exposure to violence in 2011, roughly 41% of the children between the age of 0 to 17, that means what? From elementary all the way to high school, have been physically assaulted in school.
Wow. Okay.
And then, of course, many were either bullied or they were involved in an aggressive
Yeah.
relationship. What I found interesting was actually the underage drinking.
And underage drinking and drug use, I guess
And
they can
drug
go
use.
they can go hand in
Hand in
hand.
hand.
Yeah.
In 2015, research stated that 10% of eighth graders used the tried alcohol.
Okay.
That's eighth grade. That's where middle school.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very early age and to be drinking alcohol because the brain is still developing and alcohol actually has a negative effect on a developing developing brain. And I think around the same time in eighth grade they also just started puberty, so they're going through a lot of hormonal changes.
And
as
you're
well.
putting alcohol in that system and just creating a cocktail of problems at that
And
point.
then the number went up, 22%, 10th graders tried alcohol, and number significantly increases also by the age of, by 12th grade, 35% tried alcohol. So this is something the youth is going to come in contact with.
Absolutely. I mean, in today's world, it's very easy to get. It's unfortunate for us to say this, but you can very easily get access to, as a youth, you can get access to alcohol and drugs. In fact, one of the things that I saw in the stats was that a lot of kids get introduced to prescription drugs.
Yes.
And there was a study on it, and the study notated that these kids said that they were getting prescription drugs from their family homes or their friends' family homes because they were just going in there. There was no check on the drugs, and they were just being funneled from the house to the person or the person's friends. So it's very easy to get access to those kind of things.
And I personally would say that the most dangerous period for youth is between that transition from middle school to high school. Because that's the time they're learning how to drive. That's when they become more independent. That's the time the parents give them more freedom to go out, go with their friends, to have go out to the movies, and then they do have a lot of influence from their friends.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the stats. So let's get some of the programs that are out there that we can get the users the viewers to understand what's going on.
So there are many hundreds, perhaps even thousands of programs out there that are specifically attracted to the youths. Why? Because you want to grab them when they're early, and then you want to develop their skill set. So whatever the field they want to go into, so that way they already have a head start.
Yeah. And
I remember when I was in high school for business, because I wanted to do business. For example, we had FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. There was DECA, Distributive Educational Club of America. There were nursing programs. There's all the different programs. But for law enforcement, for us, it's challenging because we have two different type of programs.
Yeah.
One is that we want to save those youth from being engaged in criminal behavior
Yeah.
that will lead them into prisons or even death. On the other hand, our programs are designed because we want to build future leaders
Yeah.
who one day will run this organization.
Absolutely.
So that's why we do two different type of programs.
Okay.
So the first one we'll talk about is TAPS, and you know more than that.
Yeah, TAPS is basically, we call it the Teen and Police Service Academy. And the viewers would actually, that's a very interesting thing to know that Houston Police Department was the first one to introduce TAPS, because TAPS was a program that we had come into conception, and we wanted to push it out there, make sure that we were able to come in contact with not just the community, but also with the kids. And that was essentially the very first approach. And just a footnote, it has now expanded throughout the country, and everybody has some sort of program, but Houston was the one that initially developed that program and said, hey, we're gonna do this stuff. So
My understanding is also international.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
So it's also gone into an international level. So when we're talking about TAPS, it's basically an 11-week program. And then the 11-week program is broken down into a lot of different segments that they go through. The first one being truancy. You've got to be at school. You've got to learn.
This program is all over the nation and also other parts of the world. And it's continued to expand. So as you mentioned, it was started in Houston, but I believe it was Dr. Penn
Okay.
from University of Houston Clear Lake.
Okay.
And I remember when it first was started, I was at South Gessner Station, and they used to do it at CEP
Okay.
in 17th District.
Okay.
So the main purpose is the high school will identify their high-risk students. And who are these high-risk students? What we already have been talking about.
Yeah.
They come from broken family, they're involved in gang activities, or they're at high risk. They're skipping school, etc. So, but it's all up to the school if they want to participate or not.
Yeah, that's a very important thing.
So once they're identified, then the TAPS, actually what it does is it has a curriculum to go through to reduce those kids in the school from becoming, becoming criminals or engaging in delinquent behavior.
So let's talk about the curriculum a little bit.
Yeah,
So
let's
it's
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's an 11-week program, and we're starting with the subject of truancy. Okay, everybody likes to skip school. Kids, nobody
all
wants.
did it one time or another.
No, everybody's done it, and kids don't want to go to school, but you have to be in school, because if you're in school, you're learning, you're making a better future for yourself. So that's one of the biggest things. That's
Remember
out
how
there.
earlier you talked about the father figure? So what we do as officers, when we do go in there, we try to fill in that void, be counselor, be mentors, build a relationship where they can actually open up to us. So that way we can help them. So that way we can become their mentors, become their friends as well.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we don't want to see any of our youth get involved in criminal behavior.
Absolutely.
Or end up dead. And I've seen 16-year-olds die in gunfire.
Yeah.
And it's very sad.
It's unfortunate, but yeah, that's sad, because that's something that a lot of police officers have come across during their tenure, seeing youth that have.
So truancy may seem like fun, but you know what? Some people, some students, when they skip school, they actually go out, break into cars. They may go and hang out, do drugs, or do something they're not supposed to be doing. They're caught up in that. So that's something we do discuss in the program is truancy.
Okay, another thing we do is team building.
Yes,
Very
of course.
important.
And that goes back to what? Remember antisocial behavior?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we want to what? Get them in building team.
Okay.
I mean, team building, working with other people.
Yeah, and then obviously we've talked about drugs and alcohol. That's something that's part of the program. We want to make sure that we educate them on the uses of drug and alcohol and how it can hinder not just their physical growth, but also their growth throughout society as well, because no good decisions are made
If you
that
do
way.
drugs and alcohol, it'd be very difficult for you to hold a steady job.
Yeah.
If you can't have a job, then how are you going to support yourself or other people?
Exactly. And then we're also talking about safe driving, how to be a safe driver, how to be able to interact with police officers if you are stopped on a traffic stop, to make sure that the traffic stop is safe, that you are safe, and that the police officer is safe, and that it ends up on a high note. So that's another one. And then we've got health and fitness, of course.
Of course, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others?
Exactly. I mean, you want to make sure that the health and fitness is, it's the core of being not just a police officer, but quite honestly, through life, and you've got to pay more attention to it. And then service learning. We've got service learning. We also talk about human trafficking, how.
That's a must.
Yeah, because human traffickers, as we've seen in recent times, have increased attacking younger children trying to break into their lives, kidnapping, all this stuff, and we want to make sure that we educate our kids for that. Then we also talk about victimization and bullying, which is very
Yes.
important because we see that victimization and bullying is something that we come across so much, and we talked about it so much in the first section.
I'm glad you talked about the human trafficking, but in the future, I would like for us to talk about human trafficking, bring in a subject matter expert,
Yeah.
because the human trafficking, what they do is they actually exploit females, and some instances even male, and they engage in sexual acts, and they're just treated like modern day slavery.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard about
Yeah.
human trafficking. And then
It's a very
one-
interesting topic.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a following episode on the greater aspect of human trafficking. But I guess at once we're done with
Yeah.
all of this, it's all factored in that your 11 weeks are done. You
Yes.
go ahead and you graduate from the whole
Graduate,
thing.
yes.
So it's a fantastic program. We've seen its use. We've seen that it works out. We've seen that it's actually been able to make a difference in kids' lives. And that
The main thing is you have to keep going, and you cannot stop.
Yeah.
And you have to keep going, creating new different programs, and create success stories.
Yeah, and I think, the success of the program speaks for itself. If it wasn't, then it wouldn't have been adopted nationwide.
Right.
We'll go into more programs, but let's go ahead and take a break real quick, and we'll be back right after this break.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County, 911 dispatch.
321 status.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the episode of Bridges. We're talking about youth and police and our interaction with each other. Before we went on break, we were talking about the different programs that we as the Houston Police Department provides. Let's continue with that. Let's talk about the next program that we want to provide people. What happens if, we've already talked about people that want to be great leaders, they can go to the TAP Academy. But what if somebody wants to be a police officer, a leader in the police department? How do we go there?
Actually, I do have a funny story I want to tell you.
Sure, please.
This is the only time I've seen it in my 18 years as a police officer, where when I used to work at the jail, so I saw a mother, she came to the jail to bail out her son, and you could just tell the son was like a knucklehead, okay? And she was mad. I never seen somebody so mad. So she comes up to me and says, hey, can I discipline my child? I said, yeah, of course you can. You're the mother, right? So she bails him out. She takes him right in front of, as soon as she steps out of the door, she bends him over, takes her purse, and then she's hitting him really hard. That's how mad she was.
Oh, wow. Hey, that's discipline. She asked, she wanted to make sure that she could do it.
I never saw that. I was like, oh my God, she's hitting somebody, but that's okay. She's a mom, she can do that. But
Yeah.
it was something very unusual.
Yeah.
And I hope I never see that child back in.
Well, at least
back
you
in
didn't,
school.
while you were at jail.
Back in jail.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to go. All right, so let's get on to the next program that we have that we offer to people.
The first program we talked about, TAPS. Okay, that's for the youth who are at high risk, because we don't want them to go over the edge. We want to protect them, bring them back. But the next one is for youth who we look for certain skill set, that they have good grades, they have a good standing with their teachers, and they don't have any behavioral issues. And the next program, that's the kind of candidates we look for. That program is called Explorer Program. Okay, what is Explorer Program? This is where students between the ages 14 to 21, they can participate. And the viewers, if you have a child who wants to participate, I would highly recommend that you reach out to your local police station.
Okay.
In Houston, most of our police stations, we have this program. So what we do is we get the youth between the age of 14 and 21, and then we put them through, once a week, we put them through a curriculum.
Okay.
And we meet once a week, and we train them. We do some physical exercise, and we also do some other exercises such as DWI investigations, how to check a building, how to use firearm, how to do interview, interrogations, all these different techniques.
It's more like a junior police academy.
Junior
we wouldn't
police,
call
yeah.
it a junior police
Yeah.
academy, but it gets you familiarized to
Yes.
what police officers do at a young age.
Yes.
So you can see if that's something you want to do or not.
And then what I really like about this program is that then you compete with other police departments,
Okay.
and you represent the Explorer program from your police station, and then you can compete with other Explorer
Teams.
teams throughout the state.
Okay.
And then you compete, and depending on which one you want to compete in. For example, Midwest Division, we had one of our students. She came number one in
wow.
the DWI investigation.
Okay. Excellent.
So that's the time you stop somebody. How do you conduct your interview? How do you look for signs of intoxication, impairment? And this is not even a police officer. This is
This is
the
a
steps.
young kid.
Young
That's
kid
amazing.
already getting the skill set. And we also do team building. We talk about leadership, how to influence somebody in a positive manner, how to be a good role model, and all these different other set of skills that we look for. And the parents, they love it.
Okay.
I mean, they're very happy to come and drop the kids off at the school. I mean, at a police station, and then to see them, and they actually see the change in the youth and how they're slowly starting to mature and start taking things seriously.
Yeah, so it's a good program.
It's a very excellent
and
program.
like you said, if the viewers want to,
Yeah.
if they have a child that is interested in such a program, you can reach out to your local police station, the one that's in your area, and they'll more than likely have a team that you can set them up with and start doing this program.
I like it. I like it a
I
lot.
mean, we've come across Click Explorers, and we know that it's strict. It gets you in the right mindset to be a good police officer.
We did have a success story. One of our Explorer students actually went on to West Point.
Oh wow!
West
okay.
Point. That's like the Harvard of the military
Yeah,
school.
the military school. Yeah, absolutely. So hey,
That
that's
was a
excellent. I
definitely
mean, she
success
went from
story.
explorer to being a West Point cadet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the next one that we're going to talk about is going to be the Greater Houston PALS program, and PALS stands for the Police Athletics League. So the Police Athletics League is it's a newer program. It's recently started.
Yes, and I'm glad we are doing this program because research has shown that at what time period the youth are most likely to be at risk for
When they're outside of school, right after
outside of school, right? Outside of school because the parents are not home, they're out working.
Yeah.
And I remember walking home from school.
Yeah.
And when you're walking home, and there are also some bad kids walking.
Yeah.
Because I remember one time I was walking. This was back in high school, and this kid is smoking weed and was walking home.
Oh wow. Okay.
So do you want to be next to that person or not?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So what we do is, we know this is the most vulnerable time for right after school, where actually the criminals, they actually try to exploit that. They actually go through high schools to look for more victims of human trafficking. I mean, this has been documented. Gang members, this is when they recruit. They look for look for new members. So what we do, and plus, that's the time when the youth hang out with the wrong crowd, can end up getting to school after school fights and etc. So we know that. So what we do is the GHPAL program is we get those students, or get those the youth, and we channel that energy into something more productive.
Yeah.
And this is through sports activity, either soccer, basketball, or football.
And we have most of Houston's teams.
Yes.
Athletic teams such as the Texans. I know the Texans are out there because the guys that are at our station, they're always out there with the Texans. I know the Dynamos are on board with it. The Rockets are on board with it. So they're
you
out
have
there.
Houston Rockets, we have the NFL,
Yeah.
and then we have not NFL, the Texans, and then we had the Dynamos. I mean, these are like major leagues.
Major leagues, and yes, and
Major
even
leagues teams.
I remember when we were out there at the Texans last year doing the National Appreciation Day. They actually showed the ad on the big screen inside the stadium, showing people that hey, the kids were actually interacting with each other during the program, and so far it's been a considerable hit that it's been able to help kids remap their life through athletics.
Because
So-
we care about our youth. We don't want them to go over the edge and ruin their life.
Yeah.
So we want to save many as we can, and this is going to be ongoing process that we're going to be doing for a long time.
Yeah.
Because it's very important for us to save our youth.
Yeah, and so the next program after that is this is something that I'm
You're
attached
passionate
to.
about,
So, yeah, it's the great program, the Gang Resistance Awareness Education Training. So that's one of our babies because I've dealt with gangs for so long. It's and we've seen this over and over and over. We even have the Mayor's Anti-Gang Task Force that's created, and it focuses a lot on kids because everybody believes that the kids that are getting attached to gangs are starting at a very young age.
Very young age.
I've unfortunately had gang members as young as 12 years old. At 12 years old, what would a kid really know what a gang is about? But it's unfortunate that those kids actually understand the gang terminology, actually understand displaying of flags and all this other stuff, colors and everything. And this program is very important. It's shown that it's good. It's shown that it's able to give kids the right amount of information. But like you said, we don't want any kid to go out there and just throw away their life over the edge. So the gang program actually allows us to get them in contact with these kids, show them what a consistent gang life can take them, because sometimes it can end up resulting in a death. And that's unfortunately, but that's the new norm now, where gang members, especially the young ones, because they are just immature, they want to prove their loyalty to the gang. They'll go and try to harm other gang members, and usually it's the young ones. And that's now becoming sort of an epidemic that Houston is currently working with the anti-gang task force, with the HPD gang division, Harris County gang division. All these guys are coming together, but it all starts here, inside the schools.
Because sometimes we think of gangs like they're the major gangs, but there are also some baby gangs, just under a certain age. Some gangs they engage in property crimes, such as BMVs. Burglaries, and sometimes the gangs actually partner up to commit certain crimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always an escalation. It's always they'll start with something small, and then they'll start to aggravate robberies. They'll start displaying firearms during robberies, and that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent those kids from going down that path, because there's nothing good that's.
Now here's what I don't like. Many of these gangsters, the media or the Hollywood, they glamorize the lifestyle.
That's there.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
And the different rap videos, like it's okay to go out and do a drive-by.
Yeah, it's okay, because and we know through the gang thing, a lot of these guys, what they call street cred, they want to be arrested. They want to be in handcuffs because they think that it gives them a certain credibility on the streets.
What were you street credit?
Street cred.
Street cred. That's a good term.
That says that makes them, when they go out there, can say, "Oh, I've been arrested this many times for these many crimes. I am a hard person," which means that I know what I'm talking about, or I'm loyal. And as childish as that sounds, it's unfortunate, but people actually do this. And these days, actually, the GREAT program has had to improvise quite a lot, because social media has now come into play. Initially, when the GREAT program was started, there was no social media. You could talk to these kids and get it done. But now you're combating something that's coming out through social media. You've got these guys that go on social media, post pictures, gang loyalties are being posted on pictures, gang challenges are being posted on pictures. Even gangs themselves have Facebook or Instagram accounts and pages, and it's out there.
We live in a completely different world now.
Exactly, and it's very important. So that's why it's very important to start at school, go out and identify these kids, talk to them, explain to them what's going on, show them what their future can be or might be if they end up in.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So far we talked about the different programs. Now something else I do. This is, I told my staff, I said, at least 3 to 4 times I want to have events at the police station where I bring in all the youths.
Okay.
Because I want them to come to my police station. I want them to see where the police station is. I want them to meet police officers, that we are friendly. Because in the future, if they have any kind of problems, they can communicate with us.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of successes. We had a back-to-school bash.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of lower income. I have a lower income area where I wanted to build relationship with them, because historically that many of the crime or these gangs, they actually thrive in lower income areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where, because it's easy to get these guys, show them some money that you've got, and tell them, hey, come with me and I'll.
So it makes it challenging for us, for the police, because I want to build that trust with these young minds, so they can go back to school and brag to their friends, hey, I went to the police station, and the officers, they treated me good. I broke bread with them, and they gave me a backpack for supplies, and plus it will give us an opportunity to meet the parents as well. Yeah. So that way we can build the bond. Yeah. So I had a huge success. Over 500 over 500 youth came through my.
Yeah, we also had the little toy drive that we had going on where people donated toys, and then we also had police officers go out there with kids to
Yeah.
toy stores and buy toy stores. So the department's actually moving forward and coming into contact with all these kids and trying to make sure the best that we can. I mean, there's another thing outside of the gang, since we work so much with it, is we actually do presentations outside of just the grade.
Right.
Just talk to these schools with all these other independent school districts. It's just like HISD and Spring Branch ISD. Work with them, discuss what the problems these kids are facing. Bullying. We come across it all just.
Now,
one.
if you're in Houston, you may be wondering, okay, how do I sign up? It's very easy. You can, for more information, you can go to www.houstontexas.gov, and you can find out more information about different programs. But if you want to join the Explorer program, then my advice will be, if you're either in Houston or other part of the United States or even North America, is go and reach out to your local police department. I'm confident 100% that they will have some kind of programs for the youth.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it comes out to be a part of your youth's life, and we'll go over a little bit more and a little bit about there's a couple of other programs that we have that we can from it, because I'm sure by now everybody's thinking, well, okay, well, this is all about kids, but what can the adults do? And we talk over quickly for the adults and make sure that they're able to.
The main thing is be involved in your child's life. Monitor the social media. Develop their mindset. Participate in group activities like sports or other after school activities. Be there for them.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. At the end of the day, you have to make sure that you keep sure these kids are safe. You are a part of them. The world has changed.
Right, it has
you
changed.
You have to be a part. There is no more autopilot. It's not the old days. You have to get connected with these kids.
Right.
You have to watch out for them because there are so many resources that are acting against their best interest, because everybody has their own interest in mind. And that's basically what it is. Please be a part of the life of your kids. And we are always here to help you. And we've given you the websites. We'll post them up again. If you need anything, please reach out to us. Until next time, thank you for being with us. Another episode of Bridges.
321 Central traffic stop.
21.
I'll be on East Green, right outside Henry County. 911 dispatch.
321 status.